I am someone that has a lot of energy. I wake up, I start my day within a couple of minutes. I end my day with just as much energy, and I don't really have any dips or drops of energy throughout the day. And some of my friends and family asked, like, how are you so energetic? But one video was recently sent to me from a friend saying, what are your thoughts? As a sports coach and sports science researcher, I look into sports performance, high-level sports performance, and of course, energy management. So I was curious to see what Johnny Harris had to say about tiredness, sleepiness, and energy management. Now, it feels really silly to have to make a disclaimer at the start of a video, but I feel that in online discussions this kind of needs to be said. So this video comes from a place of honest reflection and reaction to the video. It's not to spite or to critique, deliberately to pinpoint anyone in specific. I was asked a question, I'm answering the question, and my points come from curiosity. That's it. It comes from curiosity. If I disagree or I agree, it's because of my experience. Everyone is slightly different, but I just wanted to say that before we get in.
Year after year, more of us are quietly asking the internet, why am I so tired? Searching for answers to something we all feel but don't really understand. Every morning we're waking up feeling a little bit more worn out than we were the day before.
Okay, that's a Google trend graph. I understand that that's not scientifically rigorous, but surely there's something better, a systematic review and meta-analysis, or something about people's interest in tiredness and energy.
Afternoon slumps are a little slumpier. So much so that
Slumpier.
Companies make fun of us for this.
What's going on? It's a 3 p.m. slump.
Selling us meat or cheese or coffee or human-grade jet fuel to somehow cure our afternoon energy deficit.
Cure an energy deficit. So are we talking about energy or are we talking about sleep?
Now listen, this isn't a video where I'm going to tell you to just get more sleep or to stop looking at your phone before bed, which all of those things you should do. But I want to approach this question a little differently. I want to look at the bigger reasons why we're all so tired. A lot of those reasons have to do with what's happening right now during the day. Like right now while I'm filming this, things are happening in my brain and your brain that will make us more tired later on today and tomorrow.
I hope so, because if you're not doing anything that makes you tired, then you wouldn't be expending energy. So that seems kind of obvious.
It'll affect how long and how well you sleep, and whether or not you feel refreshed in the morning.
How long and how well you sleep. To me, that's sleep quality and sleep length, which I thought he said he wasn't going to talk about.
In order to understand why you're so tired, I'm going to take you back in time to 300,000 years ago. Meet Johnny Caveman. Johnny Caveman kind of has a similar body to ours today. He's a human. His body's a little different. His hips and his head are shaped a little differently. He's got this wider, flatter nose. He's got this big, strong brow. But up where it counts, his brain is very similar to our brain today. And yet how he uses his brain is very different.
Of the graphics, Johnny Harris does an amazing job with all of the video graphics, all of the sound design, everything. But that seems kind of obvious. However many years ago the brain was used different from now. Well, the environment's different, the organism-environment relationship's going to be different because there's technology.
Similar brains, totally different worlds. To show this, let me show you Johnny Caveman's morning routine. As Johnny Caveman begins his day, let's keep an eye on this part of his brain. This is the prefrontal cortex. When you make decisions, this part of your brain is doing most of the work.
I'm not so sure about that. Prefrontal cortex doing most of the work. This sounds like anatomical modularity. So in neuroscience, my understanding is that some people assume that that part of the brain does that thing and that part of the brain does the other thing. But the brain is everything. The brain, the organism, the body, all is involved. So I'm not sure the prefrontal cortex is the main focus.
This morning, Johnny Caveman has a few decisions to make. He has to decide where to get his water today. Should he go out and hunt with his group, or should he spend time picking berries? He just found some mushrooms. Are these mushrooms safe? Should he eat them?
Now, even with these decisions, yes, the decision's being made, so prefrontal cortex is being used, but so is behavior. Like, they are acting, they are moving, they're perceiving and acting together, the individual, to do things, which means the rest of the brain is active as well as the body, which is expending energy.
Johnny Caveman will likely spend a big chunk of his day just sitting here around this campsite, eating and chatting with his band of other humans. He might go out and gather sticks to build a campfire later. I mean, look at his brain. There's some decisions being made here, but it isn't pinging very much. There's not a ton of action up here in the prefrontal cortex.
I assume this is speculation because we don't have data of brain scans of people that many years ago, so it's speculation about brain activation and energy expenditure, but also he's describing a lot of moving, a lot of activity. I'm not so sure modern individuals will be moving so much. So when I think about tiredness, are we looking at just the prefrontal cortex in the brain, or are we talking about the organism's ability to expend energy?
His day is routine with not a ton of choices. Fairly simple decisions.
Simple decisions compared to what?
Okay, but let's transport forward in time now. I wonder what would happen if we put this same Johnny Caveman in the 20th century. Same brain, same body, different world.
Same brain, same body. No, they're not. How many years forwards is that? I mean, I know evolution is slow, but certainly not same brain, same body. I mean, same brain, same body doesn't work for anyone. Everyone's unique. It seems a bit oversimplified.
Yawn. The sun is still waking Johnny Caveman up. And now he's got a few decisions to make. He decides to shave before he goes to work. What's for breakfast? Apples again? I think I'll have a peach.
I don't understand how this is different. I mean, choose to shave or not to shave, that doesn't seem like a complex decision. And what to eat? Well, the caveman also had to work out what to eat. Or actually go find the food to eat.
Now off to work. The world's gone through the Industrial Revolution, so he spends his day at a factory where he's repeating tasks over and over.
Repeating tasks over and over. That doesn't sound like a complex decision, and if the caveman was making simple decisions and this person's making the exact same decision over and over, is that any more complex?
He's definitely making more decisions than Johnny Caveman was.
More decisions. So we're talking about the complexity of the decisions or the amount of decisions? Because to me, it just looks like they are acting in the world, and if someone's doing the same job for 6-8 longer hours, I mean, yeah, there's more decisions, but if you don't have to really think about the decision because you're doing the same thing, is that expending more energy?
But the prefrontal cortex isn't pinging a ton. It's not a lot of action up here. Okay, how does Johnny Caveman do in 2024? Did I get enough sleep last night? Where's my phone? Is my kid's concert today or tomorrow? Ugh, I need new socks. These don't match. What should I eat for lunch later? Should I cancel with my coworker? Did I have a burrito yesterday? I need to remember to send the receipts to the insurance company. I need to file that expense report. When am I going to change this fish? How much gas is in the car? Should I get an oil change this week? Why is the ice cream so slow again? Should I be upgrading to a different It's 8:30 in the morning and I've already made a ton of decisions. Way more than Johnny Caveman.
Yes, you've made a ton of decisions, but I'm not sure you could say you've made more or less decisions because, again, we can't measure it. And even if it was more, is more always more energy expenditure? Are they simple? Are they complex? Maybe complex decisions like trying to find food expends more energy than deciding whether you need to change your socks.
Or the Johnny from the 20th century. These decisions are complex, they are abstract, they are high stakes. My prefrontal cortex,
I don't think changing socks is high stakes,
is going bananas. One estimate I read said that modern humans make 35,000 decisions every day.
Okay, I need to have a look at where that estimate comes from. So look at the 2016 source. You can see it's behind a paid subscription, but if I go and just have a look on Bing, it says 35,000 choices. That's what both of these sources say. But when we go into the sources, you can see the number of choices is hard to estimate, and when you read through the paper, it essentially says it's hard to actually work out how many decisions someone's make because it depends how you class a decision. Is a decision just, I'm going to do this thing, or is it all the other opportunities that you have within that? I.e., if I decide to go pick up the glass, is that one decision, so I'm picking up the glass? Or is that multiple decisions because I need to move my fingers and move my hands, and there's lots of different things that go on while I'm picking up the glass. And once I've picked it up, obviously, then there's different movement decisions that I'm making. Is that all one decision, pick up glass, or is that thousands of decisions that I'm making within the body, the organism, to actually do the thing? For me, this is one of the reasons why I prefer ecological psychology to cognitive psychology, because in cognitive psychology, you have very specific measured metrics, and perception and action are individualized. You perceive to act, whereas in ecological psychology, they are coupled. So we are constantly perceiving and acting together, indirect and direct perception. I did a video essay about ecological psychology up there, if you're interested.
We make more than 200 decisions about food alone. Okay, I get it. Modern life is full of a lot of decisions, but I'm not running from tigers anymore. Like, I don't have to scavenge and hunt for my food. Shouldn't I be less tired? I'm using my brain instead of my body. And I'm doing way less physical work. I mean, we've got washing machines and dishwashers and automatic head massagers and at-home spas. And damn it, we even have lazy boys.
So this is interesting to me because cognitive psychology is mainstream psychology. It's the neuroscience, neuropsychology that most people talk about. And they assume a dualism between mind and body. Mind is separate from the body. Whereas ecological psychology, the type of psychology that I research, we actually reject that dualism and assume organism-environment relationships. And the mind and body are together, not separate. What that means in practice for the explanation is instead of it being a mental fatigue and a physical fatigue, there is just a global level of fatigue for the organism.
Shouldn't I feel more rested because of all of this? Okay, and here's where we come to the answer to the question, which is we gotta look at that prefrontal cortex again and see what's actually going on when you make all of these decisions.
I recognize I'm being very skeptical here, but the answer to the question why people are being tired is in the prefrontal cortex. Has nothing to do with the body or the rest of the brain. It seems a bit limiting.
It's a part of a war that is happening between you and the modern world. This war is being fought on two different battlefields, daytime and nighttime.
I'm intrigued to see what daytime and nighttime split is, because some people obviously work during the night and then sleep through the day. So
we're in this daytime battlefield, and you're making a bunch of decisions. We've talked about that. Let's see what's happening here in the brain. When you're making decisions, there's an electronic signal, like a pulse, that is traveling between regions of the brain along these wires called neurons. You've got almost 100 billion of these things, and they all are forming this giant network, tons of connections. And they all send signals to each other. That is what decisions and actions are.
I'm not so sure about that. Decisions and actions are things in the brain. Well, I'm moving my hands. That's not just things in the brain. That's also muscles, ligaments, tendons, nerves. There's more to actions than just what's going on in the synapses.
But in order to send these signals between the different parts of the brain, you need a very important chemical called glutamate. Glutamate makes all of this happen. It's a neurotransmitter. It helps everything talk to each other. But look, after you make the decision, the glutamate kind of sticks around. And as you make more and more decisions, glutamate starts to build up and it starts to clog the system, which new research suggests makes decisions harder because the whole system is clogged, which makes you feel fatigued.
Fatigued? I thought it made you feel tired because fatigue is more of a global state. I mean, I'm curious to see what glutamate really does, because by the sound of it, you just need to sleep to remove the chemicals.
Make a bunch of decisions, you feel tired, even if you didn't lift a finger. It's like as if your brain were a big city. All of these roads are the neurons and synapses that you use to make decisions. It's all functioning nicely, everyone can flow, but the more decisions you make, the more trash you produce. And the trash starts to pile up. Trash collectors will eventually move this trash out, but if you're producing a ton of trash, it starts to pile up.
I'm a bit confused here, because if you're not making many decisions, i.e. you're bedbound, why do you still get tired? The inconsistency?
And it eventually starts to block the streets, making it much harder for the cars to move along, meaning for your brain activity to do what it's supposed to do for you to make decisions. This is what it looks like when you're really tired. It's 11:30 a.m. here at my desk, and I've made so many decisions. I haven't done any strenuous work, but I'm drowning in glutamate and feeling tired.
If you've made so many decisions, surely that would count as strenuous work, because if you're making lots of decisions and you're assuming lots of decisions is extraneous work, because that's what you said, more decisions is more effort, then surely that counts as strenuous, unless you're counting strenuous as physical movement, in which case you wouldn't do that in your day anyway. I'm confused.
By the way, this is like brand new research from the Paris Brain Institute, and it is still being worked out how this works or exactly what it looks like.
Okay, source. I'm going to go read it. No, I'm just looking at the glutamate study. You can see I went and downloaded it. I had a look, and in the conclusion section, it says several aspects remain speculative at this stage. How glutamate levels would be monitored to estimate the costs of cognitive load is unclear. Explanations is still missing for why cognitive control regions would accumulate glutamate more than other regions, like the visual cortex. And then research is needed to explore the recovery of glutamate levels at rest or during sleep. So apart from saying the obvious, which doing things, making decisions, acting and behaving makes you sleepy, I'm not seeing anything new from this study.
A lot of cultures have a solve for this. It's called biphasic sleep, which is just a cool sounding name for a nap in the afternoon. People usually around like the Mediterranean take naps.
Biphasic sleep and nap in the afternoon. I don't think that's accurate. Yeah, I'm pretty sure biphasic sleep is to do with where the sun is.
From the hours of like 2 to 5, they rest, they reset. Research found that people who take siestas have increased brain functioning and are 37% less likely to die of heart disease.
Now, that is a big claim, and considering I don't think I've ever napped and I have plenty of energy, I'm now curious to see what that research was. I'm going to guess the sample group was mildly biased towards that sort of conclusion. Now, looking at the source on effects of napping on cognitive functioning, you can see that it says these conclusions, however, need to be accepted cautiously until more comprehensive research programs are concluded. And then when you actually look further down in the paper, you can see people that have daytime sleepiness experienced by narcolepsy, or people that struggle with sleep apnea, or those that are going through time zones and the biological clock gets mixed up, those individuals have cognitive functioning improvement. So in other words, if they are sleepy and they take a nap, it helps. And you can see it says brief naps or power naps have anecdotal and research support for their effectiveness in relieving sleepiness for those people that struggle to sleep throughout the night. But if you sleep throughout the night, i.e. get 8 hours of sleep, the naps might not do anything. Like, when I'm thinking back, I don't think I've really had a nap. I've never wanted or really needed a nap unless I've done something extremely extraneous throughout the day. But most of the time, that just means I go to bed earlier than I would normally, rather than taking a nap. Now, this is why I don't like the oversimplified versions of papers and studies and conclusions that people share online. This isn't just Johnny Harris. This is lots of different people doing lots of things. So you can see here, siesta in healthy adults and coronary model, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, great. If we actually have a look, so what was said in the video was...
From the hours of like 2 to 5, they rest, they reset. Research found that people who take siestas have increased brain functioning and are 37% less likely to die of heart disease.
37% less likely to die of heart disease if you take siestas. But when you look at the study, it says those with prevalent serious disease at enrollment had substantially increased frequency of siesta, including long siesta, making it necessary to exclude them from all analysis. So if you have lots of siestas and take long siestas, then they're ill. Like, they're seriously diseased.
So our brains, which are the same as Johnny Caveman's brains, aren't totally set up to make all of these decisions.
Yeah, but they're not the same.
Without feeling very tired.
If you make decisions, you're expending energy, so you're going to feel tired?
I mean, it kind of makes sense. We've got these caveman brains living in 2024. This is called evolutionary mismatch. Our brains haven't caught up with our lifestyle, with our world.
Evolutionary mismatch, and yet some people, like myself, don't have that problem. Does that make me, like, built different?
And all of the decisions that we are required to make to just be normal modern humans. So what do we do about this? Well, you can take siestas, which is like not something I can do in my life. I'm just not set up for it here. Sorry, guys. But that would be a way to clear out some glutamate and reset. But the biggest takeaway for me is just limit how many decisions I have to make every day, which is not easy, but there definitely are ways to do it.
This comes down to the limiting of decisions, or decision fatigue, I think it's called, and whether it's more decisions or more complex decisions which are more extraneous. But when I think about people that are learning is extraneous. You're putting in lots of effort trying to understand these new concepts, new ideas. People at school, for example, like children, surely they would get tired in the afternoon. And being a sports coach and coaching kids after school, I know that they're not tired. I mean, they still have loads of energy to run around a football pitch, or run around a basketball court, or a handball court, or jump on a trampoline. So if they're expending more energy during the day and they still have energy in the afternoon, is it an adult thing? As an adult myself that still manages to do all of this, I don't think so.
I've started choosing the outfits that I'm going to wear for the week on Sunday, so that in the morning when I wake up, I'm just like, oh, the outfit's already chosen. Or you could go full Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg style and just wear one thing so that you can have a closet that looks like this, which Meal planning. That's another one. On a Sunday, we've started writing down every meal we're going to have during the week. And that makes life way easier when you're at the end of a day of work and you are feeling tired.
To me, those don't sound like not making the decisions. It's making the decisions at a different time. Instead of doing all the decision making at once, you're planning, you're prepping, you're using a calendar, you're using a list, which is just spreading out when you do the decisions, not reducing the decisions necessarily. I mean, it could be reducing the decisions, but you still have to decide to put the clothes on and do it.
There's one more chemical we have to talk about for this daytime battle, and it's called adenosine. It is this very clever evolutionary feature of our brain that's basically like a signal to our brains.
Now, as someone that's interested in psychology, I'm curious why he's picked just 2 of the many chemicals that are in the brain.
Tells us when it's time to rest. As you go throughout your day thinking and doing things, this adenosine builds up and it kind of signals to your brain that you're tired. It signals that you should feel sleepy. And
now, I'm immediately skeptical because he's got Matthew's Why We Sleep book in the bottom left as a reference, and having read the book and seen some of the critiques about the book, I know that the book has mistakes and has been critiqued quite heavily by other individuals in sleep research, so I'm again being a little bit skeptical about what's being said. As for the Why Sleep Matters book as a reference, you can see here, this was created in 2019. I read this article when it first came out. It's been modified since. You see the last one in 2022, but this basically goes through how Matthew Walker manipulates some of the stats, well, actually manipulates quite a lot of the stats and a lot of the science to create a narrative that isn't entirely true and overemphasizes a lot of things, oversimplifies things, and just shares lots of misinformation. I'll leave a link to this into the description if you're interested, but just means that whenever I see that book as a reference, I'm extremely skeptical.
hopefully makes you go to sleep. But being industrious humans focused on progress, we found a substance that will block the buildup of adenosine. It's called caffeine, making caffeine the most popular drug in the world.
Ooh, I like that. I like the fact that he said drug, because that's the way I see caffeine. It's a drug. It's something that you do to your body that isn't necessarily as natural, again, labels, but it's not as natural as food or water. It is a drug. I like that.
It blocks adenosine, this natural signal of you should be tired and sleep, and allows us to keep operating as if the adenosine doesn't exist. But guess what? The caffeine doesn't last forever. It eventually wears out, and all of this adenosine that had built up comes flooding into your brain like a megaphone saying, hey, you're really tired, and we're finally able to tell you. This is called the afternoon crash.
The afternoon crash. Maybe that's why I don't get it, because I don't drink caffeine at all. No coffee, no tea. I don't really drink sugary drinks either, no alcohol. So maybe that's why I'm not suffering from an afternoon slump or crash.
My solution to this is like the greatest thing in the world, and it's called a coffee nap. When you nap, your body gets rid of the adenosine. It's like the adenosine clearing hour.
A coffee nap. So we've gone from just a normal nap to a coffee nap.
And if you drink caffeine, then you get this multiplier effect where all the adenosine is gone and the caffeine just comes in. It doesn't have to block any adenosine, and it's just ready to hype you up. Drink a quick coffee, lay down for just 15 minutes. It's amazing. Coffee naps. Add it to the list.
I'm going to have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure adenosine is about feeling sleepy. So if you sleep, you're not going to feel sleepy. That's not fatigue. And I think fatigue is what we were talking about earlier with energy expenditure, feeling fatigued, not sleepy.
The other option is to drink your coffee a little bit later than you would. Don't drink it right as you wake up. Drink it between the hours of 9 and 11 a.m. so that it lasts until you're done with work, and then you can have your coffee crash.
Okay, I don't understand why you need coffee in the first place. So if you wake up and then you have coffee or caffeine in whatever medium, why do you need that to go through the day? It's a drug. It's a performance-enhancing drug. Can you not perform your daily tasks without the drug? That seems a bit odd. If your baseline performance requires performance-enhancing drugs, to me that says one of two things. Either your baseline ability without the performance-enhancing drugs, i.e. caffeine, isn't good enough, isn't high enough, isn't efficient enough to perform whatever it is that you're doing throughout the day. So either you are lacking skill in ability to do it, skill is in physical, like aerobic, anaerobic, muscular capacities, etc., or whatever it is that you're doing is currently out of reach, so you're overreaching. If you're overreaching too much, well, now you're leading to burnout. That's where it goes to. When you look at the overreaching research, non-functional and functional overreaching can lead to overtraining. Positive training, overtraining is good, but negative obviously is bad, which leads to burnout. So if you're constantly performing with performance enhancing drugs, either you're not good enough or you're not physically capable enough to do those things, or you're overtraining, so you're going to lead to burnout, both of which doesn't seem good.
Okay, so that is our daytime battle. Glutamate builds up because we make so many decisions. Adenosine builds up because we don't let it clear out and we block the signals because of caffeine. And our modern world doesn't like us naturally clearing these things out, so we feel really tired.
Modern world doesn't like us clearing these things out. Says who? I assume by modern world he's referring to society, but society doesn't tell you you can't do this. That's up to you. So surely that would be the workload that you put on yourself or the workload that other people put on you, which is understandable, but surely he works for himself, so he's giving himself the workload. So that's not modern society, that's him, unless I misunderstand some of the stresses that he's putting on himself, but yeah, I don't get that. I guess to add a bit of context, I also work for myself, so if I feel like I don't have the energy to do something, I'm going to reduce the energy expenditure required to do said task. That's just managing practice. There's periodization is the concept in strength and conditioning, which I did my master's in. It's like, you don't have the energy, so don't do it. And if you need to do it, then plan appropriately.
Now let's get to the nighttime battle. Everyone says we should get 7 or 8 hours of sleep, but when you go to bed and when I go to bed is probably different.
What has the length of sleep time got to do with when you go to sleep? Maybe he's going to talk about people being night owls, but still, like, if you can choose when to wake up, you're okay.
Back in the Johnny Caveman days, groups of humans couldn't leave their camp unattended at night. So we evolved to have different sleep times so that some of us could stay awake and guard the camp and others could sleep. And then we could switch off. Today what that looks like is that I go to bed at 10:30 and I wake up at 6:30. You may be a night owl and you want to go to bed at 1 in the morning, or you may want to go to bed at 9 a.m.
I've never really understood these chronotype things, because I can go to bed at 12, 1, 2 in the morning, or I can go to bed at 5, 6 in the afternoon. Like, I recently went to LA and I stayed up for 23 hours on one day because obviously I had the flight, and then I stayed up 30 hours the next day. No jet lag, felt entirely fine throughout the entire time, and I went to bed early one day and late the other day. Like, I don't get it. Like, do I have a preference? Not really. I just go to bed 8 hours before I need to wake up.
These are called chronotypes, and there are roughly 4 of them. Everyone has a slightly different interpretation of what it means, but the fact is, we're not all the same when it comes to when we go to bed.
Of course we're not, because we're all individuals, we're different organisms in environments, so the context is going to be drastically different, and it's the same each night, which is what I just alluded to. Like, tonight I will go to bed at a different time to last night, and probably the night next.
And yet, we all live in a society that wants us to be the same. Our standard workday, 9 to 5, was constructed for, like, the average person, but you may not be that person. You have a job that requires you to be there at 9 a.m., and you're a night owl who wants to sleep until 10:30? Too bad. Capitalism says no.
Like, I agree to a point, but if you know you need to be up, then why not go to sleep earlier? I struggle to understand why you can't go to sleep earlier if you've prepared yourself appropriately. Like, if you wake up at 12 and then you want to go to bed in 8 hours, then obviously you're going to struggle to go to bed in 8 hours if you need to be up the next day. That to me is just planning appropriately to the way that the body works. If the body is rested, then it won't need to rest until it's tired enough. So you either need to expend lots in the small amount of time you're awake, or you need to be awake a long amount of time to expend enough. Like when I was on the plane for 11 hours, I'm not expending much energy, so I didn't feel tired when I got off the plane. That's why I could stay up for like 31 hours when I got back.
Researchers say that our chronotype is in our genes. Like this is like we are naturally coded to have an optimal time when we are sleeping.
Genes obviously play a part because genes are part of the organism, but I wouldn't say it's a linear cause. I wouldn't say that, oh, you have this gene, you're a night owl. I haven't seen any research support that, and the reference, Matthew Walker's book, doesn't say that from what I've seen.
And that may not work with your life. Evolutionary mismatch once again. So I'm going to write chronotypes down on my list. What's the solution here? Find out what your chronotype is. You probably already know what it is. Take this test online. I'll give you a QR code here. You can scan this, take a test. Maybe aligning your lifestyle with your chronotype could help you get sleep during the time when your sleep is most optimal.
I'm so confused. The advice here is to match your sleep schedule with the chronotype, but the reason he said that the chronotypes make it hard is because modern society means that you need to wake up earlier. So how does that advice help if you need to get up earlier? If anything, he's suggesting to move your sleep backwards, which is what I said.
Which will help make you feel less tired. Okay, finally, in a video that you clicked on about why you're so tired, finally we're talking about sleep. Sleep definitely matters. And I think there's actually a lot of great videos and literature, books, whatever, on sleep and how to optimize sleep.
Again, I'm still struggling to understand the difference between sleep and tired in this context, because you can feel sleepy and you can feel tired, but they are different feelings. Like people with chronic fatigue feel tired, but not sleepy. If you feel sleepy, you can sleep and then you don't feel sleepy. But if you feel tired, you can sleep and you still feel tired, because tired is fatigue, and fatigue is related to the organism, the biopsychosocial model of fatigue.
Our brains catalog all these memories. All the sensory input and memories from the day get cataloged. Our muscles and our circulatory system, they all get to relax and take a break, which is super vital. And as we talked about earlier, we clear out a lot of like the byproducts from living life, the glutamate, the adenosine, all of the kind of toxins and byproducts that we accumulate from a day.
He says byproducts and toxins as if they're a bad thing, like we need those things to survive, otherwise we wouldn't be alive.
This is all super important, but not all sleep is created equal. And what we do in the hours leading up to bed can make a big difference. So let's see what this looks like using an example. As we're following along, let's track my chemical levels. I get home around 8 p.m. I whip up some of my famous macaroni and cheese before sitting down to my desk because I've got a little more work to do. Now, my chronotype is the lion, which means I kind of want to go to bed like at 10. I'm getting kind of tired. So I pour myself a cup of coffee to fight off all the adenosine that has been building up in my brain.
Pause. So you know coffee, i.e. caffeine, drug keeps you awake, and you want to go to bed, so you take caffeine at 10 o'clock, and you want to go to bed. That's going to keep you awake. Why not go to bed and then wake up earlier if your chronotype makes you wake up earlier? Like, go to bed early, wake up early. Why not do the work in the morning rather than stay up late? That just seems counterproductive.
Okay, I finish up my work. It's 2 hours past when I normally go to bed, but I need some time to wind down. Here I am making more decisions on Netflix. And look, even though it's nighttime outside, this giant TV screen is emitting light. My brain thinks this is the sun. It thinks it's daytime, so it blocks the release of melatonin.
I'm not so sure melatonin has that much of an impact. I would probably say the interaction with the screen, the watching of the things, the thinking that you're doing with watching the TV is going to keep you awake more than just the melatonin. But
melatonin is a chemical that we need to shift our brain from wakefulness to sleep. Finally, after some Netflix, I feel like I've wound down and I'm gonna go to bed. It's 2 a.m. I turn off the TV and I get a little bit of melatonin, but not nearly enough to feel tired. Now,
to me, this is because of the caffeine. Like, you didn't need to have the caffeine to finish the work, but once you finish the work, you'd be very, very sleepy, so you go straight to bed. Now you've had to add 2-3 hours because you needed to wind down from the caffeine.
A ton of adenosine in my brain, but it's not registering. I should be feeling tired, but all of this adenosine is blocked by the caffeine I had earlier. One more look at my phone to set my alarm. Gotta check Instagram really quick. Eventually the caffeine wears off.
Those small little comments, got to check Instagram really quick. Why? Like, I don't understand why you would want to do that.
The adenosine comes flooding in, and I fall right asleep. But it's now 3 a.m. My body goes through the important process of clearing out all these chemicals. It's a slow process. I need time to do this. My body's making great progress, and then it's been 5 hours, which is just not enough time for our bodies to take out all the trash. My brain still kind of looks like this.
And I assume where he's going to go with this is this then builds up over time. And the build up over time is what I think a lot of people struggle with. And that's where the burnout potentially happens in the future. Because if you've got 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours, well, now you're building up to a poor practice. However, I think because the body is so clever and adapts, a lot of people live with 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep with caffeine because the body adapts to the situation it's in, the organism-environment relationship.
I'm going to start my day with all of the residual glutamate chemicals swirling around in my brain as I start to make new decisions and accumulate more glutamate, more adenosine that I'm going to block with caffeine. So I guess I'm going to add the obvious one to my list. Get enough sleep.
Get enough quality sleep. Well, I'm pretty sure that if you sleep with caffeine in your system, the quality of sleep decreases because you've got caffeine, a drug, in your system. So surely the obvious one would be don't have a cup of coffee an hour before you want to go to bed.
And wind down without caffeine or alcohol, the things that kind of kill your ability to get good sleep.
Okay, so quality sleep does mean not drinking caffeine before you go to bed. That's interesting because that last point includes like caffeine and alcohol, but then lots of other things that you could do to have high quality sleep, which in his example, he didn't do.
Now, let me just say there's a lot more to say on sleep. It's very well documented. There's a lot of like pop science books about sleep. I didn't want to go into those now because I feel like they're easily accessible, but you should definitely check out my sources if you want to learn more about preparing for good sleep and having good sleep and why it matters.
I'm pretty sure at the start of the video he didn't want to say just, oh, get good quality sleep and long sleep, but that seems what he's just said.
So, this is my list about it. It's not exhaustive.
So the way I see this is why we're so tired. Tired to me is fatigue, not sleepy, but we're going to go with it. And then glutamate buildup, so sleep. Make sure you get enough sleep. Evolutionary mismatch. Make sure you get enough sleep. Caffeine, don't hinder the quality of your sleep. Adenosine, get enough sleep. Chronotypes, again, get enough sleep. Poor sleep quality of sleep. They're just, I mean, there's basically saying make sure you get enough sleep and it's good enough sleep. That doesn't tell me anything new. What to do? Take a siesta or have a nap. Limit the decisions. That's just manage the energy throughout the day. So if it's a difficult day, then you need more sleep to recover. I think that's fairly obvious. Or if it's an easier day, you don't need as much sleep. Meal planning, again, that's just managing the day, the energy of the day. Coffee nap, there's the same as the first one, it's just a nap. Sync with your chronotype, I think, is just go to bed at an appropriate time for when you need to wake up and then get enough quality sleep. Get enough quality sleep, like, that's all the stuff that you said at the beginning that you weren't going to talk about. Just,
But it includes the lesser covered aspects of fatigue.
Sorry, what? Lesser cover? What? Fatigue? You're not talking about fatigue, you're talking about sleep. Okay, when I think about fatigue, I think about energy expenditure. I think of walking up and down the stairs. I think of lifting things around. I think of standing up instead of sitting down. Or when you're sitting down in the same position. So your body gets fatigued because of the isometric contractions that you're doing. You're constantly contracting to stay seated in one position. If you're moving around, different muscles are being moved. Like, that to me is more physiological fatigue. And then if you want to talk about mental fatigue, it's about the types of perception action you're doing throughout the day. Is it a complex task? Is it a simple task? What sort of complex tasks are you doing? Is it brand new? Is it something you're familiar with? Do you have expertise in what it is that you're doing? Yeah, okay. Fatigue to me is different to sleep.
That I have found very compelling and that have affected how I approach my day-to-day life. In short, it's not just because we look at our phones before bed that we're so tired. There's a lot more going on.
I don't think that's... So I actually look at my phone before I go to bed. It's the last thing that I do every day is to check my emails, to check messages, to make sure that I've responded to everyone. And that can take 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's the last thing I do before I go to bed. I lie down and then I go to sleep. And the first thing I do when I wake up is go on my phone to check notifications. And I'm fine. Maybe I'm just built different.
And a lot of it has to do with life, modern life, and these brains that we have that were evolved for a very different time.
But brains evolve. Brains just didn't stop evolving. They still evolved.
There's a lot of upside to the fact that we don't live in caves next to campfires hunting for our food.
Yeah, instead of hunting for our food, we're going to shopping centres and we have to work out the prices, which one we want to buy, whether we go to another shop to buy for something cheaper, whether there's a discount. So there's still decisions being made to find food.
But one of the downsides is that we feel this very specific kind of fatigue. It's often mental fatigue.
And there it is, mental fatigue. Mental fatigue and sleepiness, I think, are different things. If you're going to follow cognitive psychology, look at cognitive load research. Cognitive load would suggest that if you're doing something new, difficult, challenging, the cognitive load will be higher, which will increase the mental fatigue. But it doesn't mean that if you sleep, it's going to decrease that mental fatigue because you're still learning something new. You can still feel tired after you've slept.
And now I understand why. I'm not going to dramatically change my life because of these findings, but I now at least have a list of a few things that I can tweak to maybe feel a little less tired.
Now for me, when I consider what he says at the start of the video...
Now listen, this isn't a video where I'm going to tell you to just get more sleep or to stop looking at your phone before bed.
If we then take a look right at the end, you can see, well, what to do. Take a siesta, let's get more sleep. Coffee nap, let's get more sleep. Sync with your chronotype, well, that's also get more sleep. Get enough quality, well, that relates to no phone before bed because it's the quality of sleep. Limiting decisions and meal planning would be energy management. So those two are different from what he said he wouldn't mention. That's two parts of the entire video. I wonder if there's any comments about any of the points that I've made. Oh, here we go. A clinical psychologist researching sleep. Let's see. You have mixed up tiredness, fatigue, and sleepiness. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, when you're tired, you need to rest. If you rest, the tiredness will go away. Yeah, so rest is different from sleep. If you sleep, that feeling will go away. I think most of us don't make a distinction between sleepiness and fatigue, but I'm definitely going to start thinking of it in those terms. Thanks. I like that Johnny's seen this. I'm curious why he hasn't pinned it. What is the pinned comment instead? The pinned comment is, I'm going to guess it's a brand thing. Check out the ground news, so he can't pin it. That's kind of irritating. So going back to the original question, what are my thoughts? Well, I like the audio, I like the graphics, I like him sharing his ideas, sharing the learning, sharing the research that he's done for this video. I'm skeptical about the science and some of the ideas that he's sharing and some of the evidence that he's using to back up the claims, but at the end of the day, there's no wrong or right way to approach sleep, assuming you actually get sleep and can function the next day. For me, I would be looking at fatigue research and energy management and the way the body works, the way that we as organisms think and act within the world, rather than looking at just sleep, because I feel like sleep is only a small part of the way that we feel throughout the day. I guess my recommendation would be looking into the periodization research in the strength and conditioning field. That's my master's degree, and periodization is what I personally use to manage my energy throughout the days, and that's based on practice design, which is built from ecological psychology, which, again, I'll leave the video here if you're interested in the ideas from that.